Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go to the fun part.
What?
Are you shooting?
Yep.
How's my assistant doing? He's doing quite
He's
well.
doing okay.
You get bonus points for this. You know?
Hopefully it won't be too shaky.
Okay, so let's get started again back on this and start indexing this bowl. So, of course, my lathe and this lathe aren't playing nice together, so we're going to do this the very best that we can. All right, so on your indexing plate, I'm just going to take this and just point it. Yeah. So on your indexing plate, can you see here where there's 2.5, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 22.5 degrees. First row up here is 2.5 degrees, or 0 degrees, then you go 2.5 degrees, then you go to 3 degrees, and then 4 degrees, and then your 22.5 is way out here. I index most of mine at 3 degrees. The reason why I do that is because I have 10 increments in 12 sections. And it's easy for me to remember when I'm doing my patterns that I've got 10 increments and 12 different sections all the way around the bowl. So I index at 3 degrees. This is where that indexing plate that I showed you earlier would come in handy because it will fit any lathe. I made it to fit my lathe. So we're gonna go with it. So when I'm doing my indexing, the thing you have to remember is that you're gonna start from center. You wanna be on center. And when I was turning my beads, you saw me very meticulously finding center, so that when I turned all the beads, I was turning on center. The same thing goes with the indexing. You want to be indexing and you want to make sure you're indexing on center. So you want the tip of your pen, this is where we're going to find out if we've got enough room over there.
So yeah, see there's a collar on top of the lathe, there's on top of the bandage too.
Come on, baby. Okay. Now we have one problem. Houston. You didn't see this? Nobody saw this. Nobody saw this. So, because I'm kind of having to so normally this part of my slave would be back over here so that I could reach it easily, but I'm gonna be fine here. So you wanna watch to make sure when you advance each line that you're advancing evenly and not jumping a line or skipping a line. So I come around and then you can go from front to back, back to front, doesn't matter. But when I'm indexing them, I'll index both the front and the back at the same time. I'm not gonna come back around and do it on the back side. I'm gonna index the back and then the front. So I'll come around back, and I have a little fine point. I have a little fine point pin that I super glued or hot glued to this sled. And I'll come through and I'll just kinda come through like that. Come on the back side, and I'll do the back side. And if I don't touch every line, it doesn't really matter because I've got a reference line above or below. So then I'll move my sled. See? It'll get away from you. Are we locked?
That picture okay, guys?
The picture's
Yep.
okay.
Both of them in there.
The demonstrator is. Just trying to get back to center. Okay. So this particular spindle doesn't lock and stay. It's free moving unless you're pushing the lock.
Right, yeah, to stand there
Okay.
and hold that for you.
So locking and staying is the key here. So as I advance, I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna advance to the next, and then I'll come through again. And I wanna go to the very next one. Now you can skip it, just depending on your pattern that you thought about. They don't all have to be this on a 3 degree. But you see what I'm doing here is I do need help. So my last one. So you'll catch yourself as you're going along, skipping the hold. So the reason why I'm having him hold this is because if the spindle, I hear this conversation over here, if the spindle is locked, I don't have to worry about this moving. I can move and not, that's what I'm wondering. That's why I'm wondering. I don't think you're doing anything.
So Darcy, if I make one of these, you're gonna come hold this thing at my shop?
No, you're not gonna have to, 'cause it's gonna be right at yours. And you're not gonna be under pressure. And you're not gonna have your ace videographer gonna show your family out your, it's in the dent. Okay. I have to turn it. I have to be able to turn it. All right, see? Okay, there's my first mistake, guys. So it's really, really important that you're watching while you're doing it. This is one of the reasons I don't like to do this necessarily in ink. This was my last one. Okay, I think I'm good. And then go here. So I'll get rid of that when I go back and do my details. When I'm burning, question?
No, I said do the backside.
Yeah, thank you. He's keeping me on task. Go back a notch, Kevin. So he's got the camera on the back, doesn't he?
We can see your hands.
Well, sorry. You can see me shaking too. I do not have this shovel at home, kids. Girls and boys. Where's my teacher? You're my teacher, right? You're a teacher. So is it still kosher to say boys and girls in school? Or do you have to say men and women? Or what is your pronoun? Or? I went out to, where was it? Sherwood High School. I had a good friend a nurse that I worked with. I'm a retired nurse practitioner, by the way. Anybody has a problem while we're here tonight? You're in good hands. Unless Mr. Newberry is here, and then we'll let him step in. But I don't know where I was going with that story. So, this is your most tedious part. And
Is this your homemade jig or is this?
this is my homemade jig, okay? That's why it's so imperfect.
Can I ask you a question about how you're moving it to the next hole? If it was spring loaded?
If it was spring loaded, it would be easier.
Oh, okay.
And the one that I showed you a picture of is spring loaded.
Okay.
So it is easier, and I am gonna buy one, but just not yet. I just didn't have time. So I will go through and I'll go around the whole thing. This, like I said, is the most tedious part of the whole process. And as you go through and as you do more and more of these, when you index your first one, you might want to index it in pencil. But remember, pencil marks fade. They come off if you're taking this and putting it in your lap and doing your wood burning. So I use ink so that I don't have to go back and try to remember where my pencil marks were. So I will go around, and the process is to go around this complete bowl with this, and front and back. And so what I've done is I've been working on this plate for a gal that wanted me to repeat a pattern. So what I've done is I've already beaded both sides, and I've indexed 3/4 of the way, and I have actually done the wood burning on it in the house. Now, when you're burning, it's either coal wood, and I will put this on the reference sheet, but there's one of the wood burner manufacturers is making it's razor tip, is making a dedicated pen with a beading tip on it. Okay, this is by Razor Tip, and they have all sizes of the beads in a dedicated pen. And this was kind of a game changer for me as well on these dedicated pens, because your other option is to put a tip on a screw tip for your burning. The problem that I found after doing 100 and so of these bowls is that after you're burning for about a half hour, this gets really soft and it gets flimsy and it starts to squish on you. And it wants to bend and it wants to make poor contact, and you fight it. I haven't had to fight this wood burning tip at all. And the nice thing about this, I'm gonna turn it on, and you want to test it on a piece of wood before you start burning, because your tip is going to change temperatures several times every time you pick it up from your wood, it's going to lose tip. You're going to start having to heat up again. So I'll usually test it before I burn. But then I come in and I will go through and I will just, that's not up high enough. So I've got a little smoke eater fan it's if you do this in the house, or if you try to do any kind of wood burning in the house, you have to have some kind of extractor and filtration system so that you're not blowing wood smoke all over the house. But in running everybody out of the living room. So there's a soldering, they make a little gooseneck fan with a light in it for soldering. And it's got a nice little exhaust fan with a filter in it. And I just swing that over my work and it gives me good light and filtration too. So you come through and I'll just come through and I'll burn. See why these take so long? You see why they're so expensive? You see why I don't sell many? I do sell quite a few, but you have to find the right buyer. So I will go through just like that all the way around. And what I like to do is I keep an eye, I rock it back and forth so that it gets down into that groove for me.
Oops.
Patty, would you have already burned?
I'm thinking about that in my head right now while you're saying it. Yes, I would have already burnt the inside. Yes. I would have done that before I put my indexing plate on. And that's the step I didn't show you guys. But you're going to go all the way around and you're going to do this. And yes, it's tedious. But it's also a way for you. Now, if I were out in my shop and I was doing this in my shop, I have seen videos of other turners that do these basket illusions that will sit there at the lathe and they'll go through and they'll individually take each one and they'll burn it as they go. I'm sorry, my body isn't built that way. I can't do it that way. I just take it in the house and sit down, put my feet up, my dog's there, my coffee's there, everything's there. Or my scotch, or whatever it is, whatever beverage is being partaken of.
That's kind of dangerous, you drinking
No.
scotch, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm a lot more mild-mannered than that.
Drinking and burning.
And bourbon. Yeah, I'm a bourbon, yeah. But anyway, so you can see that there's step after step with this process, and each one is important. The thickness of your bowl is important. Your beading placement is important. The depth of your beading is important. And the most important thing of all is that you have fun and that you learn from every bowl that you do. Because every one you do, you're going to learn something on. When I first started doing these, I was so enthralled with it that I can't tell you how many I had to clean up and redo and redo and redo. But I learned. And I made half plates and I made funnels and, but you learn. And I think that's all why we're here, is we're here to learn from each other, and we're here to, kind of, if I told you one thing that you didn't know today, I'm happy. If you walk away from here with an absolute thought in your mind that you do want to come back, or you do want to go home and put a bowl on the lathe, turn a bowl and beat it, then I've done my job tonight. But I want you to go away thinking that, okay, I'm going to make a bowl like that. I'm going to do that. And then go home and do it. Even if you have to, make a jerry-rigged platform even if you have to make mistakes and start over. My initial investment in this was the cost of this wheel, of the cost of this indexing plate. That was my initial investment in this. And then I moved from there. You know, I went to a pricier burner. I bought specialized pins. I'm moving into specialized turning tips. But that's how we do with this hobby of ours, is we spend money.
A lot of it.
And we spend an awful lot of it. And you know what? I have a very, very sweet, interesting little videographer that is going to go home with this.
Watch out.
Wow.